I should switch off the sound, but it's good that it works. Yeah, wonderful. I see the first of you are joining already. We will start at 5 p.m. Yes, at 5 p.m. That's in 38 minutes. So we are just setting up technology here. If you come back in 38 minutes, 5 p.m., that's the time when we will go live. Feel free to already ask questions in the live chat. We will answer them in this live Q&A. Yeah. Where I am here. Or you can stay and listen to me talking to myself while I'm setting up this event. Shooby-doo, shooby-doo. Shooby-doo, shoop-dooby-doo. Shooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-dooby-doo. Okay, I don't know if that's copyrighted. Better not use the music here then. So. So, let's see if that works. Yep. Oh, the timer is incorrect on this side. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know why. Suddenly I dream about the green, green sky. That's also not correct. We start at 5 p.m. If you're already listening, that's in 36 minutes from now. Shooby-dooby, shooby-dooby-doo, shooby-dooby, shooby-dooby-doo, shooby-dooby, shooby-dooby-doo, dee-dooby-dooby-dooby-doo-dee-dooby-dooby-doo. Ja, Mist. The Phantom of the Opera. Gut. Yeah, Rachel, now we wait for you to join. Da 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 da. There's a delay. Hi, Rachel. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. How is it going?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Great. Sorry that I'm running a few minutes late. I transferred to the other room and then I was having some internet problems.
Yeah, that's that's fine. I'm testing the equipment. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't seem to allow me to set up the YouTube live connection earlier, so I had to do this live. But no one is watching at the moment, so we can still talk. But people can already see you and hear you if someone would join earlier. But it seems to be working, so everything is good.
Great. And would we get a notification if somebody joined?
Yeah. What I figured out now is I always have to get used to this different systems because I used several ones in the past. The weird thing is I can't see you on screen right now. Can you say something and I will look?
Hello? So I'm talking as a test. Great.
Okay, so I see already Zoom is always switching to whoever is speaking. So
okay.
So when you talk for a longer time, the camera switches to you. When I talk, then it switches to me. So what I figured out was that I can have YouTube running in the background, and I will still be able to see you here and do all the other stuff, and then I can also see questions. Can you do you have a device where you can see the questions that people send?
Yeah, so I have my phone here.
Very good.
And where would I open it up to see the questions?
Yeah, you simply go to YouTube. Let me send you a link. Do you want me to send it here in Zoom, or do you want a link per email? What do you prefer?
Either or works. Maybe email would be the easiest to
Yeah,
go
it goes a
back
bit
to.
faster, no? Yeah, exactly. One moment.
Great.
Bum, bum, bum. Oh, awesome. Actually, you can see it at the locals site. I will send you the link at the local.
Oh, perfect.
Rachel Stern. A video link, not Young. Chips. I just sent it without comment. No.
Great. Let's see.
Oh. Okay.
Oh,
It's
perfect.
down there is the link. Okay. If you scroll down, then you see that the video is embedded, and you start it there. And yeah. Oh no, you have to start a video in YouTube though.
Oh, okay. So I can open it up on my phone.
Yes, because otherwise I think you will not see the questions. And we should remind people several times that if they watch this on the locals website, that they should open it in YouTube. You can click directly on the video and say, yeah, open in YouTube, because then they can send us questions as well. Otherwise they cannot send us questions. In YouTube though.
Oh, okay. So I can open it up on my phone.
Yes, because
so it looks like it's
Can you mute it? Several times that if they watch this on the locals website, can you mute the video?
Yeah, sorry.
Wonderful, good. Because otherwise we get a feedback loop, and that will be very irritating.
Yeah, let's see how I can completely mute this. Okay, that does the trick. And so do the questions then show up on the screen?
Yeah, you will see that there's when you look at the YouTube video and you look below, there the questions scroll by there, and you can scroll back and forth. And we have actually a few people watching already right now.
Oh, okay. Hello to everybody that's already here.
So you get a little look behind the scenes.
Definitely.
Genau. Yeah, great. Do you want to open the event at 5 p.m. because you're like the host, the moderator, and to say a few words about yourself, about the local, and then introduce me, and then we take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely.
No. One thing that I would suggest, because people are a bit shy in the beginning usually, we should tell them right away to send their questions right away in the chat window. In the live chat window. And while they do this, I can show a few information live, what's happening from in the German job market right now.
Okay, that would be good.
So then I would share my screen for a moment so that I can show something. I have access to our database for headhunters, and that scans basically every German job website there is, and career website, company's website. I have about 2 million job offers there right now. So you can really see how, if and how the coronavirus has affected the number of job ads that are available.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting for people to know now. I think that's the big fear at the moment.
Yeah, and this will take like 3 minutes, I would say. And then after that, we can see how many questions come. And when no more questions coming, then we cut it off.
Okay, perfect.
Which time horizon did you think? I would say something between 30 minutes and maximum 1 hour.
Yeah, I would say that 30 minutes. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty reasonable amount of time, max an hour. How long do these usually last for?
It really depends,
Yeah.
I sometimes have events when there's 20 people there, and then you get 3 questions and you answer them, and that's good. Sometimes I have events when there are 400 people there, and I could basically go on forever answering questions. It's really very different. It's really depending on the day. Of course, sometimes also on the interview guests. Like I interviewed Zalando, and they were live there, and as you can imagine, lots of people watched that. So
Yeah, absolutely. They're the big expat employer these days, hopefully still.
It's insane. The head of recruitment from Zalando, she told me they get 100,000 applications every year.
Wow, that's incredible. And out of how many openings is that?
I think she told me, but I forgot. I think they at any time they have between 100, 200 openings at their site. So
Pretty competitive.
yeah, you could say that. Yeah, we already get the first questions. That's wonderful from Douglas. Douglas, I see your question. We will start answering them from 5 p.m. When everyone is here and the invites go out, and then we will answer your questions and all others that are coming.
Great. And let me just check with you quickly, Chris. I'm not seeing these questions at the beginning of my, or at the bottom of my screen on YouTube.
Let me check. I never watch it on a mobile phone. That's why I have to check every single time myself.
Mm-hmm.
One moment. But I know they're there because
Oh, let's see. You know what? I think I just got it right here.
Oops. Yeah. I see them with me. It looks like this. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And you can just scroll through them. I used the same technique, by the way. I used to work for a radio long time ago before we had any digital things. Right now, when I use sound bites from listeners also who send sound bites, I simply hold my mobile phone to the microphone. Surprisingly good sound quality.
Yeah, it's sort of funny watching ourselves in real time right now. We're slightly behind.
Yeah.
I guess we have 5 watchers at the moment.
Yeah, good. 7 people watching right now. Yeah, in a minute or so, my email, I have 20,000 readers, and in a minute I send out an email push to all of them. I never know exactly which time is the right time to promote this because my readership is all over the world. So we will see. We'll see how many people join them.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, I think 5 is a good time because for people in America, they're either waking up, or I guess on the East Coast, they're on their lunch break right now. And then for people who are in Asia, it's the evening. For people in Germany, they're, getting off work maybe a little bit earlier than usual if they're doing home office. So I think 5 is a pretty good time.
Yeah. I see this. Maybe Igor Levit, this pianist.
I do, yeah.
Every evening he does at 7 p.m. He does a live concert from his home, and for parents that's a terrible time. We have a 3-year-old and a newborn, and that's exactly the time when we are super busy with them, putting them to bed. So it's really unfortunate we can never listen to it.
Yeah, well, it could be relaxing background music at least.
Among the screams, no, I don't want to brush my teeth.
Yeah, it's too bad that you can't put the kids in front of a concert, but I did see your Twitter post the other day about having a Twitter Skype play date. I think that's pretty creative. At least you get an hour of peace.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite nice. Yeah, kindergarten friends, and they kept running back and forth and showing each other all the toys that they have and so on. It was 5 minutes of peace.
Yeah, the play dates of the future. I guess that's the silver lining of all of this craziness right now.
Yeah, it's so funny also to see how elder people now discover the internet. This Mr. Polenz, former Bundestagsabgeordneter from CDU, is now like a Twitter star already. So he discovered Twitter about 1 or 2 years old. He's 72 years old, and even got an award as a blogger of the future. And he's at home, of course, quarantined because he's 72. And over several days, he said, "Oh yeah, today I had a first time a Skype video with my grandchildren. I read stories to them." And the next day, "Oh, now I read with both grandchildren, those in Düsseldorf and those in Münster, and so, and they're so excited." And so it's funny how fast we go from this is how we have always done it, and there's no other way, to, oh yeah, this new thing actually works quite well. No?
Exactly. It's sort of like magic. My stepmother is a counselor for children, and she was always very anti-technology and saying that it was better to meet with them in person. And over the past 2 weeks, with being in a quarantine, she just discovered doing meetings with them. And now she loves it and is saying, "Oh, I could come over to Germany and still keep on with my business, even though she's in California." So I think once they discover it, they're hooked.
Yeah, yeah. And with companies, the same. That's maybe the silver lining in all of this mess, that companies, they will change quite a lot after this crisis, I think. Because first of all, a lot of people will not be willing to go back to the office because this argument, this doesn't work, will be disproved by weeks of staying at home. And hopefully they will also think about being more open in regard to whom they are hiring. Because if they have to change, you cannot change with the same people who have been sitting at this desk for 30 years. You need different people to change as an organization.
That's true. And probably more companies are open to having their employees stay at home. I think with more traditional jobs, they felt, well, we have sensitive material and this has to be in a laptop, which only is in our office. But once they were forced to change it, they saw, okay, we actually can trust our workers from afar.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife, she works in asset management. And when she started to work from home, she was like the first person to do this, or second, I don't know. And they really were wondering if this works. And they were quite willing to help, actually, but had a lot of concern. It was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Because the deal was, my first son was born. So she said, okay, if I can work from home, then I come back to work earlier. And that was the motivation for them to say, yeah, sure, let's try this. Even though nearly everyone she has to deal with is actually in Paris. So she was in an office in Düsseldorf to deal with people in Paris, which makes no sense, so she can do this from
Yeah.
home.
Well, it's really ironic just how you could have done online conferencing this whole time, and it's only until you're forced to. I mean, for all of us at the local, for the first time on Friday night, we had a company-wide online happy hour. We're based in 9 different countries, and we were all sitting there chatting. And we could have been doing this for years now, but it was only our situation that spurred us to take this on. So it really is causing a cultural shift.
Yeah, you have the local is really a cool organization when I look it from the outside, because it's journalism, which I love. It's international and local at the same time. Uh, must be quite fun to actually to be in conversation with your colleagues all around Europe.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because all of us are on the ground and talking, of course, to locals there, getting a sense of what's going on while sharing their own personal anecdotes. And this definitely is not a boring time to be a journalist right now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I see we get a more audience. There's 40 people now online. In 10 minutes, we will start. In 9 minutes from now on. So have just a little bit more patience. You can listen to Rachel and me chatting a little bit
Hello,
before
everybody
we
who's already here.
Yeah, exactly before we start officially. And if you have questions about the job market in Germany, feel free to post them in the chat, and we will go through them one by one once we start, then at 5 p.m. Pünktlich.
Very German of you, Chris.
Very German, yes. I did an interview this morning, and with an American podcaster, Pat Flynn, and later I listened to the recording, and I have to apologize to everyone who's listening how I butcher the English language with my German accent.
No, I find it to be quite good. If you hear many Americans speaking German, we also tend to have a stronger accent, and same for lots of different nationalities. So accents always speak to where you're coming from.
Yeah. And after all, German is the language of love, isn't it?
Was it Goethe that said that?
No, I don't think so. That's just my private joke here.
Yeah. Well, maybe after so many people being locked up for a long time in their homes, that'll be another cultural shift.
Yeah, maybe. I see. So Douglas sent questions already. Siro, Patti, Ahmed, Mahmoud, Mitale is there sending questions. Feel free to already post your questions in the chat if you want. And in 8 minutes, we start to answer them.
And so, Chris, you must normally do home office. I don't think this is something vastly new for you.
No, actually, everybody's coming around to my lifestyle now. I love people as long as I don't have to see them in person. Because of my clients, they are anyway literally all around the globe. I even have clients in Nigeria. And therefore, video conferencing is anyway the way how I do it. And personally, I like it also because it gives me the freedom to travel quite a lot. And now with small children, it's more difficult, but we used to travel quite a lot all over Europe. And that's really a nice lifestyle. So that's personally for me, that's the next step that should happen. In the Netherlands, there's a legal right to work from home office. The employer has to prove that it's not possible to work from home office. And I think they should widen this and make it European-wide, so that once you have a job and you're employed and you do a good job, you can live basically wherever you want. Because it doesn't really make a difference for your employer if you are at the other end of Amsterdam or if you are in Barcelona, as long as you do your job, right?
That's a good point. And with technology, I think it's often easier for employers or employees to come together at a camera meeting, and you're less likely to be running late as well.
Exactly.
Turn on your computer.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about radio. You didn't have to shave in the morning. Good.
So how many listeners do we have now?
Now it's 46 watching right now. So what do you think? Shall we start already, or do we give people, for fairness reasons, the other, what is it, now 5 minutes to join?
Well, since we're both based in Germany, I would say we could reward the Pünktlichkeit for our meeting.
Very good. Yeah. Then so you're based in Berlin, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. The local Germany has been based here since 2008, and as many of you know, we're part of a chain of several locals around Europe. We started with the local Sweden in 2004, and then started expanding to different countries like Germany, of course, France, Italy. And the idea is to be the eyes and ears for English speakers who are living in these countries, and not just tell the news, but also act as a resource for jobs and healthcare and all of the bureaucracy that you might have to deal with every day. So we're lucky with this technology that we can have this Q&A with you and try to answer some of these questions that we might not have been able to address in our articles yet.
Yeah, and the local really has become a really respected source for information. So whenever I lived in 6 different countries, and the local would always be like my first go-to place to learn about what's going on locally.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. What about you, the listeners? We have 56 people in the call right now. We will start in 4 minutes at 5 p.m. officially. Where are you all located? Feel free to type in the city where you are in the chat box, and let's see where you are joining us today. before we start officially then at 5 p.m. On Twitter, I saw before already that someone from Düsseldorf is joining, who is actually living right around the corner. Mozamel is in Berlin, he writes. Amit, also in Berlin. Fidan in Berlin. Manassi in Berlin. Copenhagen. Where else? Berlin, Frankfurt, Berlin. Johannesburg, South Africa, welcome. Berlin, Arnberg, east of Nuremberg. Berlin, Heidelberg, Wuppertal, also very close to me in Düsseldorf. Berlin, Erlangen, Chennai, India, hello. Duisburg, Düsseldorf, Bonn, Köln, Bremen. Quite diverse.
Definitely. Yeah, and a lot of people from all throughout Germany. Oh, yeah, another Düsseldorf here. Okay, so let's see, it is 4:58 right now. So I would say that we can probably start taking some questions if you want.
Yeah, do you want to make some introductionary remarks? Is that correct?
Introductory remarks, yeah, that does have a lot of syllables. It should qualify as a German word. So hello to everybody who is watching. I'm Rachel Stern, or Stern, as it would be pronounced in German, and I am the editor of the Local Germany, which, as I was saying, is a news and culture site in English for people who are already living here in Germany or who have an interest in coming to Germany. And so we're here today with Chris Pyak, who is a jobs expert, and for many years he's been invested in helping people all around the world find jobs, and even in these unusual times, showing that it's definitely not hopeless, far from it, to either advance in your current position or to find a new job. So he's going to be here helping and answering you with your questions.
Yeah, welcome everybody. As Rachel said, my name is Chris Pyak, and I have been guiding international professionals like you since the last decade. And today we just want to make sure that in this time of crisis, you have a go-to place where you can ask your questions and get some advice. And before we get to your questions, I want to share with you a live view of the German job market as it is right now. I use for my work, I analyze the complete German job market, and I use for this work a professional database for headhunters provided by Textkernel, a company in the Netherlands. And this database basically scans every source of job advertisement that is online in Germany, job portals, companies' websites, and so on, and so on, and so on. And yeah, I want to show with you, I would like to share with you live for a moment what is going on in Germany right now, and is there any effect of the coronavirus? And I will share both with you the general German job market and the English language job market in Germany. Let me share my screen with you for a second. Let's see. So, and maybe Rachel can tell me if it appears here.
I see it, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, so this is the online job market in Germany. As of this moment, there is about 2 million open positions that has been advertised since in the last 8 weeks. Let's change this to see what's going on this year, so we have a little bit better overview. One moment. Shoops. So this is till today, 25th of March. And as you can see, in a typical week, with the exception of the first week of January, of course, there usually are about 250,000 new job ads every single week in Germany. And this was holding quite steady during even through most of March until last week, when the first stricter measures of containment were installed here in Germany. And then the number of new job ads that have been published already started to go down. In the last week, for example, we have 27.5% less new job advertisements than in the median week here in Germany. And I hear this also from bigger companies. For example, I do regular interviews with companies that hire in English. And we had an interview scheduled with Lufthansa. And Lufthansa first postponed the interview with us and then delayed it indefinitely because they have a 100% hiring stop right now. They don't hire anybody. And a week later, they canceled 95% of all flights in and out of Germany, simply because of the coronavirus crisis. So there is now we can actually see an effect of this crisis on the job market. And we can also see that probably it will get worse in the coming weeks. In the short term, that's quite concerning. In the long term, this might be good for everyone who doesn't fit into the German ISO norm of expectations. And maybe we have a little bit later some time to talk about that. I want to share with you also, what's that? The number of English language job offers, because this database, it's analyzing the actual text of a job advertisement and can filter out those ads that are in English. And let's check if there's a difference. There's two things I would like to point out to you. First of all, as you can see here, the number of English language job ads in Germany is way, way lower than the total number of job ads. It's about 2.5% of all job ads every week that are advertised in English. Meaning, if you are looking for a job in Germany and you are not fluent in German, 97.5% of the job market is not addressing you. But that's not because they wouldn't necessarily hire you in English if you convince them of their of your value. It just means that they did what they have always done. Das haben wir immer so gemacht. That's the standard German attitude to most things. That's why we still use fax machines in the year 2020. And ironically enough, this crisis might be one factor that hopefully will change this. We see this already with home office, that suddenly everyone can work in home office when 2 weeks ago they told you that's absolutely impossible and will never work. Hopefully the same will happen to hiring international professionals, let them start working in English and learn the local language on the job. So two things to see here. Number one, the number of job ads dramatically is lower for English language job offers, and also the number of job ads. This is the last week here. This is the current one. It's still growing. This is the last week. Already has dropped quite a lot, about 30% for English language job ads. This is quite interesting. This is a freak incident. 1 week with a huge number of job ads that came in English. That's because not only the reason for that is that not only are there very few English language job ads, they're also by a very small number of companies. 500 companies together provide about 70% of all English jobs in Germany. So that's something I wanted to share with you as background information for you. And Rachel, I think we start taking questions now. And I will stop the Freigabe here. 1 moment. And maybe you can tell me if it's gone, because I don't see it.
Let's see. So I still see your full screen right now.
This is weird. Let me see.
Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Yeah. Nein, will ich alles nicht. That's weird, no? That I can, why can I not simply say, stop this? Okay, yeah, maybe you can already start to take some questions while I figure out here why this is not doing what it's supposed to do.
So let's see. Let's go to the first question that we have. So back to the theme that you were talking about with home office, the first question is from Douglas Cesar, and he says, hello, Chris, thanks for making this event. I would like to ask if you see German companies being more open to remote working. If not, why not?
A good question. Until 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, they are very hesitant about that. They do this very seldom because they feel they have to have control. And the main reason for this is actually, das haben wir immer so gemacht. No? Germans stick with what they know until they are forced to change. And then, of course, coronavirus happens. And, as you can see, everybody can work in home office now. Well, not everybody, but everyone who works in an office job, most people, they are able to actually start working from home. So now, I think from now on, companies will be very open to that because most employees will not want to go back. If this curfew is lifted in a few I wanted to say in a few years. Oh my God! If the curfew is lifted in a few weeks, maybe at 20th of April, when the kindergartens are supposed to open again, those who had a good experience working in home office, they will not accept to be forced to come back to the office every single day, because the argument that doesn't work will clearly be disproved. So they hopefully will be more open to work in the home office. Okay, now I figured out where the button to end Freigabe is. But since you ask, we don't need to guess, and you can still see my screen. We can simply check how many job ads in Germany have the word home office in this year. So you see from, what was it, 2.5 million that were online, 85,000 have the word home office in their job advertisement. 85,000 out of total 2.8 million. And I would assume this will change after this crisis is over. So now we can see each other again, Rachel.
Hi again, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name the right way. This is from Papi Kozoram, and he says, hello, I'm a non-European citizen and looking for job openings in Germany. Kindly let me know how to proceed.
Mm-hmm. The real question here is, of course, do you need a visa or do you not need a visa? You can look at the job market like a parkour where you run and where you have more and more obstacles. So everyone who grew up in Germany, who speaks fluent German, went to a German school, German university, when they apply for jobs the regular way through the application process, there are surveys by a government agency that shows that on average they have to send 5 applications to get 1 job interview. Oops. If you are a slightly bit different than this ISO norm, then already life gets harder for you. And this is why this argument, you need to speak fluent German to get a job in Germany is in most cases not true. It's simply the most convenient excuse to get rid of you. If you, for example, you are a German, you're born here in Germany, you went to a German school and university and you apply for a job, but your name doesn't sound like traditionally German, you already have to send 7 job applications on average to get 1 job interview. Because in HR departments, there are people who evaluate you mostly not on how much can you contribute to the company, but how well do you fit into this ISO norm of expectations, something I criticized for many, many years. And if you need a job, if you need a visa in order to start working here, it makes it, of course, more difficult to hire you. Therefore, it makes it more likely for companies, for HR departments to reject you. The solution is to not even bother talking to HR departments, because the standard application process is for standard candidate, and you're not standard, you are different. What you should do is ignore HR, try to find the hiring manager, the person that you would report to if you get a job, and talk with this manager about her or his problems. Simply talk as 2 professionals, eye to eye or on the phone, and try to figure out what is the biggest pain point of the employer. And if you can find out what they really, really need and offer a solution to their problem, then all these obstacles to hiring you, like language, like visa or so, they become much less important. You first have to focus on creating the maximum value. Now, the more valuable you can make yourself to the employer, the more they will be willing to help with problems like language and visa and so on. That's a short answer. There's a longer answer, but I needed a book to write about it. So.
So we've been receiving a lot of questions, so I'll jump around a little bit and put 2 together from Mazama, and he asked a question which is really relevant for the current period in time, and says that my company sent me a letter about Kurzarbeit info and told me to sign it. What is it about and what should I do? And then he also asked if you could tell him about Kurzarbeitgeld.
Okay, so I can't give legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. The government put a scheme together that exists already for many years called Kurzarbeit, means short work. And this was introduced during the financial crisis of 2008 in order to protect jobs. Because in 2008, as you know, the financial system crashed, but Germany is mostly a country that has a lot of products to sell and industries to sell, industrial products to sell. So they wanted to keep employees in the workforce. They wanted to make sure that they don't get fired. And in order to help with this, the government agreed to pay part of the salaries of employees while they are sitting at home. So if your employer has to send you home because there's not enough work for you, this Kurzarbeitergeld will cover a part of the salary that you would usually get. You don't get 100% of your salary, but you get quite a big amount. Please forgive me, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's 90%, but don't take my word for it. Check it. My advice is, if it's a legal document you should sign, ask a lawyer or someone who can really understand what you are doing there. You can also ask, if you don't have a lawyer, ask the unions, the unions.
Great, thanks again. So we'll move on to this question from Natalia, and she asked, I got fired and I don't meet the criteria for Arbeitslosengeld 1. What other option do I have?
Yeah. Again, I cannot give you legal advice. If you are a citizen of the European Union, then you can apply for social welfare. Also, now I realize you can do this also when you're not a citizen of the European Union, because the government has a responsibility by our constitution to make sure that you can survive. No? So you can apply for social welfare. They will make it quite hard for you, unfortunately. But you have a right there, and you should take with you a German speaking person who can help you in this process. because unfortunately, you cannot always count to get correct information from government employees. Sometimes they don't know, and very often they have a tendency to sometimes mislead you. Unfortunately, that's true if you're in a weak position. So take a German person with you who can help you make sure that you get good advice and good help.
Thanks for that. So again, we have another question from Mahmoud, who says, I'm in Germany now looking for a job with a job seeker visa. Do you think I have to go back to my country? Do you know if I can apply for a job seeker visa again?
You can definitely apply again for a job seeker visa if you have to leave now, especially given the current situation with coronavirus. Everyone understands that it's much harder to get a job right now. It is possible in the 6 months that you are here to find a job. But let me be honest with you, you will not get anywhere, in my experience, by simply applying through the standard application process. Because there you have basically two choices. You apply for English language companies. They get lots of applications. We were just talking, Rachel and I, before we started officially. I did an interview with Zalando, with their head of recruitment, and they get 100,000 applications every single year. So that's the kind of competition you face when you apply for English language companies. And I know the same is true even for smaller companies who get 1,000, 2,000 applications. Or you apply to German language companies. And there they will first look, do you speak German? And if the answer is no, you are out. Very often, to be very honest, if you are not from Germany, you're not based here in Germany, you are out anyway. They will not even read your CV. You can find a great job here in Germany, but you will have to invest much more empathy and thoughts and work than you would normally do. The thing that will lead to results is always trust and a personal recommendation, meaning you have to reach out to the actual hiring manager. You build trust with this person so that they will be willing to share with you what they really try to achieve, what their biggest pain is, which is never what is written in the job description. And then you have to prove to the best of your abilities how you can solve the person's problem. Because I always explain it like this. Imagine you went to a party yesterday, and it was a great party, and you wake up in the next morning, you have a huge headache. And there's two people standing in your bedroom because that's the kind of party that you were at. And the one person says, hey, I studied medicine, I published many papers, I have a long history of successes in the field of medicine. And the other person simply says, hey, I have an aspirin for you. Do you want the aspirin? What do you take? You take the person that will solve your problem. And the job search is nothing else but that. Companies hire people because they have problems that they want you to solve for them. You need to find out what these problems are and offer a solution. And the standard application process doesn't help you with that, because job descriptions usually belong into the fantasy aisle of a bookstore. They have very seldom something to do with the actual job. You need to talk to the actual supervisor, your future supervisor, if you get the job. Ask them what they really care about, what keeps them awake at night, and then have a real conversation with them and offer solutions based on your experience. Sorry, I went a little bit on a rant there.
Thanks for the interesting description. We'll move on with a question from Zukwali. And the question would be, aside from the general drop in job ads overall, do you see any companies, especially in Berlin, that might hire more now or in the next months?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I know of a lot of companies who are hiring at all times. All the startups that are growing because they have the pain, they grow very fast, they need people. I interviewed a couple of them, a number of them. Sorry, I'm German. I always think a couple of us, more than one. For my podcast recently, Marley Spoon is hiring right now, for example. in Hamburg, DAISY, that's a scientific organization. They have 200 open jobs that they're hiring right now. In Munich, Freeletics is hiring. MyToys is growing very fast, and they want to hire international professionals because they are going they have a strategy to become more international, so they are actively looking for people with a diverse background to hire. You can check them out on you find the job offers at the local, of course, or you can also check out my interviews with them at immigrantspirit.com/podcast. That's immigrantspirit.com/podcast. And when I interview them, I do exactly that, what I just proposed as advice to you. I always talk to the decision maker, not just to HR. And I always ask them, hey, what keeps you awake at night? For this position, what kind of solution do you bring in order to be successful in this position? What is the biggest problem you need to solve in order to be successful? Why is that so important? And when you understand that, then you can use this knowledge to write an application that covers this exact pain points. And if you do that, then you already have a huge advantage to all the other candidates who just send a standard CV, meaning, I have this many years of experience, blah, blah, blah.
Thanks, Chris. And so a follow-up to this question is, do you predict that any new general industries will emerge, especially during the coronavirus times?
What I would predict, or what I hope for, is that already during the crisis, but more so after it's over, you will see that the major companies here in Germany will be, hello, my son chose this moment to crawl under our bed. That's very interesting. Okay, well, good. Let me regain my thought here for a second. So what I'm also working in home office, just like everybody else. So what I will see is that companies will change drastically, and they will be way more careful who they hire. Because before the crisis, economy was good for many years here in Germany, so they were not forced to really be super efficient. They simply did what they always did. That's why we still use fax machines. No? And after this crisis is over, companies will struggle. They need to regain profitability. They have to make up for the losses that they have experienced. And also the rest of the world is not standing still. There are a lot of companies will have found suppliers in other countries that they are competing with. So they have to become more efficient and better at their job. And this results in the company is looking way more carefully whom they are hiring, and they will start to ask the question that they don't ask right now, which is, what can you actually do for us? No? I have this problem. This is our biggest problem that we need to solve, and how can you help to solve this problem? And this makes it harder to get a job, but at the same time, it makes it easier for everybody who doesn't fit into the ISO norm, because now you have a playing field, a level playing field. Before that, the first choice was always the German-speaking guy, no matter if he's 10 times less competent than you are. But after the crisis, because now it really matters what you can actually do, the playing field will be much more level. And they will be much more willing to listen to you when you can prove to them that you can actually solve their real problem. But you will still have to actually talk to the decision makers in the company to learn what these problems are. It's not enough to be general in your sales proposition for a job. You have to be specific. And the second thing that will happen is many companies will realize that they have to change. And you cannot change with the same people that are sitting at the same desk for 30 years. If you want to change, you need to bring in new people. And that's your chance to get into the job market. I help international professionals for the last decade to find jobs here in Germany. And what my clients and I see over and over again, Whenever there's something new going on in an organization, then your chances to break into this organization, to get a job there, are way better than when things are just going their usual way. If you somewhere discover that something new is going on in an organization, that's always a hopeful sign that you have a chance.
Thanks again, Chris. So let's move on to a question from Erica, and she writes, my husband doesn't have a BA, but previously held a high responsibility IT management position in the US. He has B1 German, but is often told that isn't good enough. Any suggestions to make the case?
Yeah. Would be interesting to look at who tells him his German is not good enough. Does he talk to HR? Or is it the actual hiring manager? The strategies are different depending on with whom you're talking. If you talk with HR, the solution for your husband is to ignore HR, go directly to the decision maker, because with them they can talk as two professionals. If the decision maker is telling you, hey, you need German for this job, it's important to realize that usually this is not an actual evaluation of the job and the goals they have, but it's a gut reaction. It's an emotional first reaction. I'll give you one example. I spent 6 months talking to the head of HR of a small company in the south of Germany because I was so fascinated with her, because she insisted that for the jobs that she was hiring for, you needed fluent German language. What was the job? The job was sales, cold calling companies in France to sell them tires. So apparently, in order to sell tires to French companies, you need to speak German, fluent German. So when the hiring manager tells you, hey, you need German, that's a first emotional reaction. The way how you get through this is, of course, we cannot tell him, no, you're wrong, because he will say, hey, I know my job and you don't. The way to get through this is to ask for more information and say, I understand that German is quite important. Let me ask you, just for my own understanding, in every position, in every job, there's 10 or 20 things you have to do. Which of them would you say are the 3 most important things that I have to do in order to be successful in this position? And you can do this in your own mind for your current job or your last job. From all the things that you have done in the job every day, which were the 2 or 3 things that were most important, that defined if you are successful or not? And very often you will see that 2 or 3 things make like 80% of the success of this position. And then you can pick each of these 3 tasks or each of these 3 results and explain how you will achieve these results while you are still learning German. And there usually is always a way how you can actually do this in English while you still learn German. But it's not enough to say, I will figure it out. You have to actually have a real answer and explain how you will do this. Maybe in real world, it will turn out that you have to do something different later, but you have to prove that you have thought about this and that you have a solution prepared to offer. One example I can give you very regular is, I work with a lot of engineers, and the usual answer you get from hiring managers is, yeah, we all speak English, but they have to talk to the factory floor, and the workers there, they speak only German. And that's why you can't work for us. If that's really is the main challenge, then I ask myself, why don't they simply hire an intern? Because you're not getting hired to speak German, you get hired because you're an engineer and you have a degree and you understand how to design stuff. To talk to the factory workers, you can hire an intern who will translate for you until you are really fluent with German. So there's a solution to most of these obstacles, but you have to first find out what they really care about, what is valuable to them, and then address the top 3 things. And then you might be able to have a conversation that finally leads to the point where they give you a chance. If you want to know more about this, this is what I do for a daily living. You can find out more on my website, immigrantspirit.com. Sorry, again, very long answer. By the way, Rachel, feel free to cut me off when I keep on gabbing,
Sure, Chris. Well, you have very interesting answers. It's good to hear you elaborate on them a little bit, but let's change to a slightly different topic that comes from Pablo. And he asks for German employers in IT related jobs, what is more important to have, experience or certifications?
At the end of the day, is experience. Because what you really want is someone who can help you solve your problems. And certifications are just placeholders. Stuff like the name of your university, the education you got, the degree you have, the fancy companies that you work for. These are all placeholders for the actual question. And the actual question is always, I have a problem. Can you help me solve my problem? No? And I would always argue that experience is way more important than education or than any certification that you have. Because skills you can always learn, but experience is something that just comes with time.
And this is one of my own questions, Chris, but how much would you say that a university degree is valued in Germany? In some countries, like the US, for example, it can be rather difficult to land a job without one. Would you say that that's necessarily the case here?
Yeah, in the standard, if you go to the standard application process, then yes, a university degree is important. And that's what you will be judged by first, because you will be judged by HR, and HR regularly, literally, has no clue what the job is. I have dealt with over 800 HR people during my career, and if there were 10 who could answer this simple question, what is the most important result you need to achieve in this position to be considered successful? From 800 people, maybe 10 could give me an answer to that. So that's like if you would be a referee at a soccer game and you don't know that the point of soccer is to score goals. So they don't know what they should judge you by. And because they don't know, they have to find other things, placeholders that they can judge you by. And that's stuff like the university degree. The sad truth is that everything you achieved abroad, many Germans will simply take it as that's no value. Like I had literally had one head of HR tell me, oh, I cannot evaluate this foreign degree. And the candidate had a master's degree from Cambridge.
Wow.
Yeah, my reaction exactly. Wow, I go now. So,
Yeah, talk about sticking to the rules.
exactly. So solution is obviously, in any way, if you are in any way different from this ISO norm, and that applies to people here in Germany as well. If you're too young, if you are too old, if you are the right age, but you are a woman, and oh my God, you might want children very soon, or if you're a German citizen, but your skin is a little bit darker, or your name sounds unfamiliar to Germans, the way forward is to be measured by what you can actually deliver to the company. And HR is not the person who can judge that. It's always the hiring manager. So you need to have an eye-to-eye conversation on the same level from one professional to the other.
And so let's move on to a question from Midtali, who asked, is it hard right now to find an internship? Are employers busy handling the crisis, focusing more on their employees rather than letting new people in? I'm getting many emails where positions are getting on hold.
Yeah, we saw this at the beginning of the call, that the number of jobs that are advertised go way down at the moment, and I expect them to go more down in the coming weeks. That said, it depends if you are still a student and you need an internship for your university, or if you already experienced a professional with 2 or 3 years experience and you just think that internships might be an easier way to break into the market. From my experience, it's exactly as difficult to get an internship than to get a real paying job, because the obstacles is never the job, and the obstacle is not you. The obstacle is the people who judge you. So if you want to make the effort that is necessary to break into the job market, go for a real job. Don't waste time looking for internships.
And so, on the note of looking for a job, here's a question that comes from Shri Charan, who says, I'm curious, I'm from India, and I'm looking to apply for the job seeker visa. It seems challenging, though, to find interviews with companies while sitting in India. How do you suggest going about this?
Yeah, first comes the human being, and then comes the job. So the way how I work with my coaching clients, that I coach for 6 months with the expert job offer guarantee, is that and many of them, they are still abroad. They're in India, they are in Costa Rica, they're in the United States, they're in Australia, South Africa, everywhere around the globe. The way how we do this is every week they find at least 5 jobs that they are interested in. And then together with me, we find the managers behind this job offer. And then we reach out to the managers and we talk with them about their challenges. And that, of course, doesn't work every single time, but on average, it works well enough. So for people who are still abroad, the experience that I had over the last 10 years is very simple, that you will need roughly about 120 contacts to where you reach out to a manager to get a significant number of job interviews, maybe 10 or 12. And this 10 or 12 job interviews, they lead then to 2 or 3 job offers. And it's you can expect at least 6 months, 6 months time that you need for this process in order to find a job. My advice would always be start this process while you are still in your home country, so that by the day you arrive here in Germany, you already have a network of connections that you can reach out to that can help you get into conversations with managers, because 6 months go by very, very, very fast. Yeah, there was a second point that I wanted to make about the previous conversation, but I lost it. It's gone.
Well, I'm sure it will come back to you. In the meantime, let's take a question from Anna, and she says, hello, thanks for this valuable webinar. I'm looking for a job in the digital tech space, particularly in the biz and ops side. Do you see a drastic drop-off in hiring in startups as well as in big corporations? I know earlier you were talking about Lufthansa, which has cut 90% of its flights in the past weeks, but have you seen startups as well really struggling?
I myself have not experienced that yet. As a matter of fact, I have a podcast interview on Monday with a company who is hiring. I haven't got any feedback of that kind yet, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I would have to look into the data to give you an answer to that.
Great. And so let's move on to a question from Amina, who says, hello, I'm a non-EU citizen from Leipzig doing a master's. Can you give some suggestion for a fresh graduate? And it would be great if you could also suggest some job agencies.
Okay. The first thing is something that no graduate student ever does, but I will say it anyway, which is start building relationships now. Still, the majority of all jobs worldwide and also here in Germany come through a personal recommendation. I somewhere read the number of I think 75% or so of all jobs that are filled by a recommendation. So you need a network of connections in your industry in order to get to a really good job. I remembered, by the way, what I wanted to say about the other thing. Build connections now. Use your professor, use former students of your university, use current students who were in an internship in a company, and keep in touch with these people and build your network now, because every week that you delay this will be one more week where you don't make an income after you finished. And I know you are in stress now, learning for your graduation, and your mind is completely focused on that. So I'm pretty sure most people ignore that advice. But whenever you have a moment, do this. And another thing that you can do in order to build relationships and find your niche where you can be valuable very quickly is whoever you meet who is already out there in the work life, ask people about their job. and ask them specifically what keeps them awake right now. And then listen carefully to what they have to tell you. Because very often you will figure out, first of all, okay, this is really important and this is not. You get some real world experience. And very often you will figure out that actually there is something that I could do to help this problem. And this will give you a lot of insights about where you can put your education to the best value. And it will lead to lots of very valuable connection, because people love it if they can tell you about their day and about their struggles. The thing that I wanted to remember about the other thing before was, there's a strategy that people start to apply once they have been in Germany for a while and they have sent out lots and lots of job applications and they didn't even get an interview. And that is that they try to make themselves cheaper. That's something I warn against. That people start looking for jobs that are way below their experience level, that they are willing to take way less money than they are worth, and so on and so on. This is a strategy that I warn against strongly, for a very simple reason. Contrary to public belief, people don't buy the cheapest product. People buy the best product they can afford. And the same is with the kind of people they hire. They don't hire the cheapest people, they hire the best people that they can afford. So focus your energy on proving that you can add the most value to an employer. And if you do that, money will never be the point where an employer says, we don't hire you. If they have a problem with your salary, they will tell you. They will not simply say, we don't hire you. They will say you, hey, we love you, but the salary is too high. And then you can still negotiate. But if you make yourself much cheaper than you are worth, then people will start to doubt your qualification and they start to doubt your value. So don't do that. No.
And so I see that we have 17 minutes left and we still have a good handful of questions. So let's try to address most of them. I see some are more or less the same, but we'll go back to a question from Mazama, and he writes, how can I contact and find supervisors and decision makers? Because many companies don't provide their contact details other than just the HR department.
Yeah, you find them through LinkedIn and Xing. There is, if you search my name and Experts Career webinar here in YouTube, there's a whole webinar that you can watch on YouTube where I explain exactly how you do that. That would take too much time for this call, but simply Google it on YouTube, Chris Pyak, Experts Career webinar. You'll find it, and it will answer more questions than you have. You will be wished you didn't ask.
And so another question, do you have to mention grades in a CV for job applications?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. If you have something outstanding, like when you got something with honors, then yes, mention it. Otherwise, don't. It also depends on how long of work experience. A true story from one of my clients. One of my clients was an experienced manager in his 50s who ran a company in Australia with $25 million turnover. And one company here in Germany rejected them because he had only average results in his college degree, which was like 35 years ago. That's the kind of responses you get from super incompetent HR people. In real life, that's nothing to worry about. No.
And so let's move on to a follow-up question from Zukwali. I hope I'm pronouncing your name the right way, but you write, since you mentioned the work market will look completely different after the crisis, can us job seekers use this free time to brush up on some specific skills that will be desired by employers? So for example, online courses or anything that will help employees prepare for the new demands. And he writes, I'm a former account manager, project manager in consulting.
Yeah. My best guess and my hope is companies will hire for attitude. That's what you should look at, because skills you can learn, and skills we have. There are professions where we have a lack of skilled labor, like IT, But the thing that we really lack in Germany, and that's why my company is called Immigrant Spirit and not slave.com also, is we need people with a certain attitude, people who dare to take risks, people who are willing to contribute a lot, to learn a lot, and to try new things out. My guess is the most valuable ability you can have in this world after coronavirus is an ability to navigate blindly in a new country, in a new world, and find the things that work for this world. And that's the thing where we Germans are lacking experience, because we are super safety oriented. You know, Ungewissheit, uncertainty is something we can't handle very well. That's why we are so great engineers. You know, engineering is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and it works perfectly, you know, like a machine. Put us somewhere where we don't know what the solution is and we are lost. And that's the valuable skill, because this world after coronavirus, anyway, even without coronavirus, with digitalization and globalization and everything going on, you don't know where you want to go. And you need people who are comfortable in this uncertainty, who can find out what can work. That's what will make you valuable. And the second thing you can do in this time of preparation is build relationships. Because at the end of the day, it's always a girl or a guy who looks you into the eyes and believes you that you are competent and trustworthy to help them solve their problem. Build relationships, my number one advice.
And so you addressed this a little bit before, but let's move on to a question from Guyan, who asks, what's the right channel and approach for an H manager to have a real conversation?
For what kind of manager?
To have a real conversation. Basically to be able to
but what profession you said? Which kind of manager you said?
What is the right channel and approach for an HR manager to be able to have a real conversation?
Yeah, if you are an HR manager, I think it shines through slightly that I have a certain opinion about this profession here in Germany. And you have your work cut out, because often here in Germany, people enter HR who usually would work in the government. They're even more safety oriented than the average German. And safety not for the company, safety for themselves. They want to be protected from criticism. So you have someone who wants to avoid uncertainty at all cost. And if you're in any way different than the normal candidate, then you ask them basically to either take a chance or take a risk or avoid a risk. And the standard reaction is avoid the risk. What you can do in this instance is two things. The general thing is make sure, and that's true for everyone, make sure that your CV doesn't let any questions open. There can be no gap, not even a 1 month gap in your CV. You have to explain everything. If you didn't work for 3 months, then write, I was reevaluating my career options. HR people understand that you were unemployed in that time, but that's not a problem. You know, as long as they don't have to think about what happens there, as long as they are not uncertain, everything's fine, but there can be no gap in your CV. That's the general advice. And for your profession specifically, you will not get a job in general HR. Your best option is to look for jobs in recruitment. Because in recruitment, these are areas where a lot of companies are trying to work internationally and hire more international candidates. And that's your best shot at finding an opening and also be chosen as a candidate. But I will be honest with you, you know, you have a much harder job than most people because the people who make the decision in HR are very risk averse in general. That's a generalization, and I apologize if you are the one HR person who is different, but that's something I just experienced in 46 years living in Germany.
Thanks for that, Chris. So let's move on to a really useful question, which applies to, I think, everybody here, asking, can you guys give tips about writing the Anschreiben, so basically the CV or the cover letter?
Yeah. I used to recruit for Trivago here in Düsseldorf as a freelance recruiter. And in that time, even my small company got about 1,000 job applications every single week. No? So every morning I open my inbox and there's 150 emails from new candidates. And 99% of them, they are exactly the same. Hello, I have this profession, I have this many years of experience, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't add any value because all of this information I can see in the CV. In your cover letter, you should not talk about yourself. You should talk about the company and how you can contribute to their goals. And the best way to do this is what I have told you all along. You call the hiring manager and you ask him, hey, what is keeping you awake at night? And why is this so important? And then you take the answer, and your cover letter should have only 3 paragraphs. First paragraph. Thank you for our conversation. You mentioned that the biggest challenge for this position is whatever it is. Second paragraph, you share a personal experience from your work where you solved a similar problem for your employer. And the structure of this story is always the same. This was the problem. This is why the problem was so important. These are the 3 steps that we took to solve the problem, and this was the result. People are extremely good at detecting bullshit. No? They will see from this experience if it's something that you actually really experience or if you make it up. And the last paragraph is very simple. It's simply, I would love to discuss this in a personal interview. First paragraph, hey, thank you for talking to me. You said this is your biggest challenge. Second paragraph, share an experience where you described how you solved a similar challenge. Third paragraph, let's talk about this. And this shows why it's so important to talk to the hiring manager. If you talk to HR, the first thing they will tell you is, yeah, read the job description. Then you will explain that you did read the job description. They will tell you a list of skills, but the skills is not the goals you try to achieve. No? The skill is the hammer, but a hammer you can use to put a picture on the wall. You can use a hammer to build a boat, or you can use a hammer to kill your wife. No? 3 very different uses for your hammer. What you want to know is, what is the hammer for? And HR can never answer this question. Although 99% of the time, they cannot answer the question, what is the hammer for? Anyway, you should still call HR if you cannot reach the hiring manager. Ask them this question. Use the answer to address this challenge as good as you can. The least what it will achieve is that HR will realize that you were interested enough to ask. Believe me, not many candidates make that effort. And that already will make you outstanding. And with some luck, your CV gets on the desk of the hiring manager. He will read from your answer that you got the problem completely wrong because HR told you something wrong. But they will also realize you were interested enough to ask. And very often they pick up the phone to talk to you and explain what the real challenge is. And then you have the chance to prove how you can solve that challenge. And that can lead to a job interview. Sorry, again, long. Please stop me always, you can go back.
Well, thank you for the really elaborate answer. On the note of CVs, we have a question from Stephen B, who writes that he's not in the position to gain a degree from a German university right now, but he wants to know if it would be helpful to complete a short course or certificate instead from a well-known university like Heidelberg or Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich.
You always have to weigh the benefits that you get. This approach seems to me quite a lot of work with very uncertain results, because all of these degrees, and so they're all placeholders. They're not the real thing. They're all placeholders to describe competence. But what the employer always wants, what the employer really wants, is someone to help him solve his problem. So a much better investment of your time is to build relationship with employers in your industry. Talk to managers, learn about their problems, listen very carefully, then share experiences that you had where you solved a similar challenge. And if you are just a student, and you don't have many practical experiences yet, then the next best thing that you can do is always to share experiences that show attitude. that show an example where you learn something very fast and what kind of results you got for your employer at the time with this ability to learn something very fast. You know, I speak to hundreds of managers and employers. I love to ask them, think about all the people that you ever worked with. And you can answer this same question for yourself in your mind. Think about all the people you ever worked with, and then rank them from the best person to the worst. And ask yourself, what did the best person do different from all the rest? They must have done something different, otherwise they wouldn't be the best. And the answers that 99% of all managers will give me is one of three. Number one, this person really took ownership of their project. No? I constantly saw her completely invested in achieving this goal that she was set to. Number two, she was constantly educating herself, and I could see the progress that she was making. And the last thing, yeah, she got my back. That's the three things that every manager mentions that I ever talk to. And they're all about attitude, not about skills, not about degrees, attitude.
Thanks, Chris. So we're running a little bit short on time. We still have quite a few questions. So
Maybe one
there's
last
a
question.
way for the questions that have not been answered to provide a written response or do what we can to condense those into articles so that everybody who's here will get to see an answer to the question. But we had a lot of overlapping ones about CVs and being a job seeker at this day and age.
Yeah, I think you can read a lot of the columns that are published on the local. And you can also watch my webinar that you find here on YouTube. Simply type in Chris Pyak webinar or Chris Pyak Experts Career Webinar. And if you want, you can also reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or Xing. Little tip here, if you reach out to me, send me a message. If you just send me a contact request, I completely ignore you because I get about 100 every day. If you send me a contact request with a message, I will not connect with you, but I will answer your message.
And we have actually a question from Amit who asks how immigrant spirit can help people land a job. He noticed that you had sent out this Excel file for companies who are hiring English speakers. But do job seekers have to pay any sort of fees to you for your help?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two kinds of ways that I help international professionals find a job in Germany. The number one is the free things that includes jobs that you can find on our website as well as the local. There's articles where I explain how to get into German companies. There's my book that you can read, How to Win Jobs and Influence Germans. So you'll get it on Amazon. The webinar here is free that you can find if you type into YouTube Chris Pyak webinar. And then there's paid services. And paid services is for those who want to be absolutely sure that 6 months from now they have a job. And these are the people that actually literally I take them by the hand and I walk with them every step along the way until they have a job 6 months. Meaning I coach them, I help them to reach out to managers, I show them how to find them, I build connections myself to the managers that they are interested in, and I'm with them every step of the way. And that's of course super time consuming and takes a lot of thinking as well from my side and guidance. And that's a paid service. If you want to find out more about this, it's called the Experts Job Offer Guarantee, because that's exactly what it is. It's a guarantee that 6 months from now we have a job. And you find it on immigrantspirit.com. There's a button called Expert Job Offer Miracle. If you click on that button, then you find out everything about my service. You will find out that that you will have to make quite an investment of financially, but also of time and emotions in order to run in this program. But the upside is that it's literally a guarantee. 6 months from now, you will have a job. And if you're still abroad, then that's definitely the way for you to go because you have an immense amount of competition here in Germany.
Well, on that note, it is 6:01 right now. getting to the end of the home office day for most of us. So I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to give another webinar and be here to ask as many questions as possible. This definitely won't be the last webinar because I'm sure during this time there's a lot of people in a pretty difficult position with finding a job. But as you've just shown, there's always a need for jobs and always employers who are hiring.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. And hopefully we'll see each other soon again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.